Welcome everyone, my name is Comet and today I have a very special video for you because I'm gonna be rating every single one of the classes so that you can know which is the best tank for Mist of Pandaria Classic. And this is actually something that a lot of you have asked me to do, so I have done my research. I went in and I researched the best PvP and PvE servers for Mist of Pandaria, such as Wild Hammer, Tauri Evermoon, Helios, Mistblade, and so on. Every single one of them, I've done my research, and I have also researched the post on what worked back in the day in Mist of Pandaria, the original release. So now that I have done all of my research, it's time to share it with you. Now, first off, tanking is gonna be very, very different than in Cataclysm or the previous versions of WoW, because over here, think about the Death Knight. If you're gonna get hit by a magic ability, you pop your magic shield, right? If you're gonna get hit by something that does a massive amount of damage, boom, you put your mitigation on cooldown. Now, this type of active gameplay of choosing your spell depending on what is gonna happen is something that will be done by every single one of these classes, because they are remaking how tank works. For example, a lot of these mitigations were built into the passives of some of these classes, but not anymore in Mist of Pandaria. In Mist of Pandaria, you will have to choose how to mitigate your damage. And from here, something that is very important as well is that in the PvP servers, in the Mist of Pandaria servers and in the original version of WoW, a lot of them tend to talk about mostly what is the most tanky tank class. But if we have learned one thing with Wrath of the Lich King and with Cataclysm Classic, it is not anymore about how tanky is your class, but rather how much damage you can output without getting in danger of dying. This is min-maxing, and we saw it in Wrath of the Lich King, we saw it in Cataclysm, we are seeing it in retail, and I have been playing non-stop in Classic Fresh Anniversary version. We see it here because you tend to see Warrior, Mage, Priest every single dungeon. And you barely see anything else. Thinking and considering this, we can now start moving forward into over here. What is gonna be the best tanks for this? So we need over here something that can resist a lot of damage, output a lot of damage, and also has a lot of utility. And I think we can start with something that simply works. But before that, there is also another thing that I must say in regards to Mist of Pandaria. Every single tanking post that I've read, as well as every single tank player that I have talked with from the private servers, they told me one thing. There is a lot of bugs in Mist of Pandaria. And a lot of the times, this make it so that stacking dodge or parry or block or avoidance is more efficient, than other type of stuff for simply tanking. And I say this because if you play during Mist of Pandaria, you know that this was the case of avoidance, being one of the most important things that you can just stack with. You want something with a lot of HP. However, because the mentality of the players is more about how much damage I can output and how little damage I can take, we must also take into consideration a class that can do it all. Brewmaster Monk. And I want to start with this. By the way, I'm not exactly sure if this is the logo for it. I just couldn't find a Brewmaster logo, just as a bit of a note right there. But the reason why I start with the Brewmaster is because we are going to understand from here, what the perspective is going to be for Mist of Pandaria Classic. Because there's going to be a lot of avoidance, because there's going to be a lot of active mitigation, where you will have to choose your abilities so that you can do the best job for your raid or dungeon. That's why the Brewmaster is gonna be S tier. At least from my perspective, having seen what happened in Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm, and also what is happening in even Classic Fresh. This is a class that you're gonna be outputting a gigantic amount of damage. you have so many cooldowns that you do not need even that much assistance, from a healer. Because one of the things that the healers have mentioned to me is that there are some classes that they just do not like healing, period. Because they either require a higher skill level or they require better gear to actually function correctly. This has none of these problems. In my eyes, if you are gonna start Cataclysm, this is by far one of the best classes that you can get into. You cannot go wrong with a Brewmaster. Has the damage, has the active mitigation, has the tankiness in general, has the easiness, due to how much buttons you're gonna have, how many skills and abilities you're gonna have, had the easiness for the healer and the raid, and overall you're gonna have the best experience for yourself, and you're gonna make your allies have the best experience as well. There is one thing that actually I was considering if I should drop it, but honestly, due to how much it gives, I will still put it in S tier, and that is because it is gonna be by far the most complex tank that we have ever seen in progression up until this point. This is gonna be the most complex class. However, the more you learn about it, the better you become. That is why I'm gonna be putting in S. Next, I wanna tackle something that a lot of people might get into mind, which is, if people are stuck in avoidance, dodge, block, parry, etc. due to the bugs, wouldn't the Paladin and the Warrior be good for this? And the truth is that they are in fact. In fact, let's put it like this. Considering that we had the exact same bugs in Cataclysm Classic that what a lot of people experienced back in the original release, I expect that we have the same thing happen over here in Mist of Pandaria. Now, a lot of these bugs have now been resolved, but it took them about 6 months to resolve. 6 months! So we're gonna have a huge amount of time before some of these bugs get released. And what I mean by these bugs is, for example, you have a boss. Just to put an example, it will hit for 1000 damage, right? However, a bug may cause it hit for 2000 or 3000 damage, right? Now, this should not happen on paper, but there are bugs that make them do something like this. This is something that I read in every single post and I hear from every single tank player. It's just something that you have to take into consideration. And because those bugs were not fixed in Classic Cataclysm, I imagine that they're not going to be fixed in Myth of Pandaria for the most part, neither. Or at the very least, a lot of them will not be fixed. And therefore, these two, minimum there had to be a B. And from there, we need to see where they truly stand. Now, let's start with the Paladin. Because the Paladin is a class that I personally disliked a lot in Classic. I think it's the worst class to have as a healer. I just have to babysit this thing or it's gonna get one shot. In Mist of Pandaria, all of the classes, all of the tanks get better. And this right here is a class that in my eyes is gonna blossom in Mist of Pandaria. Because if we saw what happened, in Cataclysm Classic, you had always a DK and a bear. Always, right? Because DK was the best class. Oh, I cannot put them. Let me reset it. Now, DK was the best class, and the bear was just so easy. It was like an immovable brick, right? You couldn't kill it. It wouldn't die. In fact, there are a lot of one-shot mechanics that this thing could survive, simply because it was so tanky. If you play the cooldowns correctly and everything, right? Which then it makes it not be a one-shot mechanic, but you know what I mean. It does so much damage that even like the high damage mechanics who are meant to kill you will not kill you. Well, that class is gonna be the Paladin. That's why I would personally put it in A tier, considering all of the bugs and the fact that it's gonna be so easy, and like this thing is gonna be an immovable object. AoE targets, single targets, high damage, high threat, although threat is not gonna be an issue in Mist of Pandaria. And it's gonna be the easiest class to play as a tank, and it's not close. In fact, I saw the rotations. It's 4 buttons. And that is if you want to be fancy. For the most part, it's a 3-button class. So just like the bear, if you want to have something that you can play efficiently while watching Netflix or while watching your favorite YouTuber or streamer, this is for you, man. In fact, I'm actually considering tanking with a Paladin. Like, it just sounds good. The only thing is that you obviously are not gonna be as tanky as for example a Brewmaster, and you will be doing less damage, and you will have less utility as well. That is why they're not in the same tier. But it is the easiest class in the entire game. It works. It's good. It's just good. Now, warrior. Warrior. If you are a warrior, you know that this class is fun to play, and it just gets even better in Mist of Pandaria. Now, in Cataclysm, I personally prefer the warrior over the paladin, but I know that the general consensus is that the warrior sucks dick. Period. Right? But in Mist of Pandaria, it got reworked into a much better version of the warrior that has a lot of mobility. It is probably by far the best leveling tank in the entire game, especially from what I saw it being able to do. You know, you're so mobile, you're so quick, you do so much damage. It is fantastic. You know, this was already the case in Cataclysm. You already had a lot of fun leveling the warrior, and I think it gets even better in Mist of Pandaria. So definitely minimum of B. But I would say that the active mitigation that you have on your warrior, it gets a bit dull at one point. By this I mean stale, you know. It gets a bit stale at one point, so you keep doing like the same thing, or you keep doing things that are not maybe that efficient and so on. But because of the high damage, this could actually be a good class for speed running. High damage, high mobility, high tankiness. In general, I would put it right here. Now, it is like an in-between in terms of difficulty and complexity. I personally think it's gonna be a lot more complex than most classes, except maybe the Brewmaster. But at the same time, that is only if you want to min-max. If you want to speedrun, you will definitely have to focus a lot on the damage and less on the tankiness. But if you just want to do like a normal tanky everyday job, then you simply do your mitigation, rotation, and it's gonna be like the same thing every match. So it gets a bit stale, but at the same time, I think the fun part about the warrior is gonna be that maybe you will want to speedrun, you know, just like we saw in Cataclysm, Firelands. People are just trying to rush it as fast as possible. Go! We want to get things done, man. You know, so I'm gonna keep my eyes on the warrior. Now, next, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the Druid, because the Druid, like I mentioned, in Cataclysm, it was an immovable object. The highest HP in the game, you were a tank, it was easy to play, etc. But from the reworks that they made, you know, to the tanking system, this is actually the tank that suffered the most in Mist of Pandaria. I read this in every post, you know, from the original servers. I read this in every, or like I heard this, you know, from every tank that I spoke with in the PvP servers. I even tried it myself, and it is not as tanky as before. It can still get the job done, but I don't see any reason to pick it. Like when there's other stuff, you know, I see like there's no reason at all. So for that reason, I'm just gonna be putting it in B. It has less tankiness than in Cataclysm, less tankiness than a lot of the classes. You do a lot of damage, but that damage is not gonna be like when you min-max the damage, you realize that you are gonna be very squishy if you try to do a lot of damage. That is not the case for the other classes, due to the, like I mentioned, the avoidance prevalence in the expansion due to the bugs. Now, if there were no bugs, it's still efficient to do avoidance, because then you can just abuse it, you know? Like now, the avoidance part is the fact, it is there because we want to not get affected by the bugs. But if there were no bugs, then we will still be using avoidance, so that we could have used the shit out of that and speed run the dungeons. That is my way of thinking. But in terms of tankiness, it goes something like this, and then we have the Death Knight. Now, hear me out here. Death Knight is gonna be, once again, an S tier class. However, it is not the same as in Cataclysm. Here, it's not a hero class anymore, but rather a super top tier class that if you min-max it, you're gonna be the best class in the entire game, but you're gonna make the life of your healers a pain in the ass. And this is what I heard from every single healing post. When I was researching my healing, data for my healing guide, I realized that a lot of people tell you the same thing. I do not like to heal a Death Knight. And that is because this is gonna be the class that, if you're not careful of when to choose your damage mitigation, you will die, because this is a class that focuses a lot on sustain rather than direct damage reduction. And this is something that is a problem because a lot of the encounters from raids that we're gonna have in Mist of Pandaria are gonna have bursts of high damage, meaning that you will have to have those reductions at some point, and you will have to have the tankiness to do this. However, considering that people always try to min-max, the fact that this thing is probably gonna be the highest damage tank once again, I will still be putting it in S tier. Despite the fact that it's not gonna be despite the fact that it's gonna be a very annoying character to deal with. Once you get the items that you require as a healer, it's gonna be a blast, because then you're gonna be able to destroy bosses like it's nothing, because this class just does a lot of damage. Now in Cataclysm, I have done pugs where DK was top 5 damage, or top 3 damage. No, top 3 no, because I'm usually top 2 or 3, but like top 4, top 5, it's always a DK. Or there's always a DK over there. In Mist of Pandaria, I don't think it's gonna... Well, in Mist of Pandaria, I guarantee you that it's not gonna be like that. But you will still see the most damage done by a DK. So, in my eyes, I would put it in S tier. I would even put it as the best class in the game when you min-max. In fact, when you min-max, this is the tier list. When you actually think about the tankiness, I would actually be switching it just like this. But because there are bugs, I'm gonna be putting like this, period. Just because there are bugs, I'm gonna be putting like this, and I'm gonna be just putting the Decade on the edge due to the high damage and min-maxing possibilities that this thing has. My personal recommendations, though, I would recommend you to go with a Paladin if you want an easy life, and a Brewmaster if you want something that just works and is fucking good. It's probably the best class in the game. Or sorry, it's probably the best. No, not best class. Like the best tank in the game, globally. In fact, but yeah, like Paladin if you want an easy life, because you just work. You can do everything. You can do every single one of the content while watching Netflix, man. That is how it's gonna be the Paladin. It's basically the bear of this expansion. Death Knight if you want to min-max, speedrun, a lot of top tier guilds, I know they might be going with this. And the Brewmaster if you just want that. Now, my recommendation would be Paladin or Brewmaster. I will personally be going with the Brewmaster. But I will also be trying every single one of these tanks. I already have them maxed in Cataclysm, so it's gonna be very easy to move those into, moving into Pandaria. And when Pandaria gets released, I'm gonna be doing an update on this, so that we can actually revisit this tier list and see, hey, I was right, or hey, I was completely wrong, or hey, we need to change this, or it actually didn't happen like that, etc. Or maybe it did happen like that, or it's gonna happen like that, sorry. But this is how I would put my tier list. I will personally be bringing a Brewmaster Monk, because you know what? I don't want to worry about anything. I want something that works, period. I enjoy the complexity on this though, but I know that a lot of people just want something that works and is easy, so I would recommend the Paladin. For now though, I will leave the episode right here. This is how it goes in terms of how tanky is the character and how much damage they can output at the same time. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Comet, and subscribe if you want the tier list for the other roles, because I'm gonna be uploading them as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Comet, and I will see you on the next video. Have a good day, everyone. Have a good night or morning. Peace.